They said no maid ever lasted in that house. Not one. The gate alone looked like the entrance to a king's palace. Tall, black, shining, guarded like a fortress. The mansion on Bishop Adarimi Drive, Banana Island, was breathtaking from outside, but inside it was war. And at the center of that war stood Madam Vivienne Hart, beautiful, polished, and dangerous with her mouth. Her insults could break a woman faster than hunger. In 6 months, 9 maids had quit. Some ran out crying. One jumped the fence barefoot. Then Zainab Bello walked in. Dark-skinned, quiet, a small nylon bag in her hand. But there was something in her eyes that made the gate man blink twice. She wasn't there for pride. She wasn't there for comfort. She had a sick daughter and bills stacking like a mountain. Zainab didn't come to be liked. She came to endure. And she came with a weapon Madam Vivienne had never faced before. Silence with a backbone. What Zainab did inside that mansion didn't just change her life. It cracked the uncrackable woman. The staff moved like ghosts. Everyone avoided eye contact as though looking at each other might cause trouble. The cleaner wiped counters without lifting his head. Even Mama Tiwa, the cook who once cooked for powerful politicians, measured her footsteps like a soldier in enemy territory. The house itself was rich. Marble floors, gold decorations, glass that sparkled. Yet the air felt heavy, like somebody buried anger inside the walls. And the anger had a name. Some called her Madam Ice. Others called her Madam Perfection. But nobody called her that to her face. At 33, Madam Vivienne looked like a model who never sweats. Tall, light-skinned, always dressed like the world was watching. Even her robes looked expensive. Her perfume stayed in rooms long after she left, but her words stayed longer. Sharp, cold, and unforgettable. She didn't give instructions, she gave commands. She didn't correct mistakes, she punished them. Sometimes with a slap. Sometimes with a sentence that left deep, invisible scars. In that mansion, her opinion was law. And every maid before Zainab had learned that the hard way. Madam Vivienne was the second wife of Chief Adewale Hart. The first wife had died years ago, leaving a silence that never fully lifted. Chief Adewale was almost 60, wealthy, respected, feared. He owned oil businesses and properties that people only whispered about. When he entered a room, people stood straighter. But even with all his power, his house remained controlled by his wife's temper. The rumors outside were always the same. "That mansion is beautiful," people said. Then they lowered their voices and added, "But the maids? They don't last." On Zainab's first day, nobody welcomed her. Nobody asked her name. They were tired of learning names that disappeared every week. The housekeeper simply pointed at a mop and muttered, "Start with the marble. Madam is coming downstairs." Zainab didn't argue. She tied her scarf tighter, rolled her sleeves, and started cleaning like her life depended on it. 'Cause it did. In her heart, she repeated one prayer. 3 months. Just 3 months. That salary could keep her daughter alive. That was all she needed. Zainab's daughter, Imani, was 9 years old and fragile. A heart condition had kept her in and out of the hospital like a visitor who couldn't go home. Every bill looked like a death sentence. Zainab had begged doctors, cried in corridors, slept on benches. So compared to that pain, insults were light. While mopping, she whispered, "Even if they curse you, endure. Even if they slap you, endure." Then she heard it click, clack, click, clack. High heels. Sharp heels. And silence falling behind them like darkness. Zainab looked up. Madam Vivienne stood at the top of the stairs in a wine-colored silk robe. A cup of tea sat in her hand like she owned the whole world. She scanned Zainab from head to toe, slowly, carefully. Then she glanced at the bucket beside her. Without saying a word, she tipped it over. Water splashed across the already clean tiles. Zainab gasped and jumped back. Madam Vivienne walked down slowly, her eyes cold. "This is the 3rd time this week someone blocks my walkway," she said. "Clean it. Now." Zainab didn't answer. She bent down, picked up the mop and started cleaning again. Her slippers soaked through. Her hands shook slightly, but she did not stop. From the hallway, the housekeeper whispered, "She won't last. She looks too soft." Mama Tiwa sighed and murmured, "God help her." But they didn't know Zainab's truth. She had buried her pride a long time ago. Life had already beaten her. She wasn't soft. She was silent fire. And the more Madam Vivienne tried to crush her, the more that fire refused to die. The next morning, Zainab woke before 5 a.m. She swept the compound, cleaned the glass doors, and mopped the living room again, this time careful and perfect. By 6:30, she was in the kitchen washing plates beside Mama Tiwa. The old cook glanced at her. "You woke early," Mama Tiwa said. Zainab smiled gently. "I'm just trying to do my work." Mama Tiwa leaned closer. "My daughter, this house is not about hard work. It's about surviving Madam's mouth." Almost immediately, they heard slippers approaching. Madam Vivienne entered the kitchen, her robe tied tight, her phone in her hand. Her eyes looked restless, like someone angry at the world. "Where's my lemon water?" she snapped. Mama Tiwa rushed forward. "I was just about to." "I wasn't asking you," Madam Vivienne cut in. Her gaze moved to Zainab. "You," she said. Zainab bowed slightly. "Yes, Ma." "Room temperature," Madam Vivienne warned. "Not cold, not warm. If I sip and my throat feels like a sauna, you will regret your life." Zainab nodded. "Yes, Ma." Zainab prepared it carefully. 2 lemon slices, clean glass, quiet movements. She climbed the marble stairs like she was walking into Judgment Day. In Madam Vivienne's room, everything shined. Gold curtains, perfume bottles arranged like soldiers. Even the small white dog sat on the bed like royalty. Zainab placed the tray gently. Madam Vivienne sipped, paused, then smirked. "You're lucky," she said. "You got it right." Zainab turned to leave. "Wait," Madam Vivienne added. "There's a stain on my sink. I hate stains." Zainab entered the bathroom and saw a faint rust mark. She sprayed cleaner and began scrubbing softly. Then her shoulder brushed a perfume bottle. It wobbled. Zainab caught it fast, breathing out in relief. But when she turned, Madam Vivienne stood at the doorway with folded arms. Without warning, she walked forward and slapped Zainab hard across the face. Zainab's head snapped sideways. "You're clumsy," Madam Vivienne said coldly. "I don't like clumsy people." Zainab's eyes burned, but she bowed. "I'm sorry, Ma," she whispered. She placed the perfume bottle back in line with the others, hands trembling, spirit steady. Madam Vivienne waved her fingers like shooing a fly. "Clean the guest room next. Iron the bedsheet while it's still on the bed. I hate rumples." Zainab nodded again. "Yes, Ma." Outside the room, she met Chief Adewale in the hallway. He had heard everything. Their eyes met. His face didn't change, but Zainab noticed something, pity. Chief Adewale opened his mouth like he wanted to speak, then shut it again. Zainab walked past without a word. She didn't need pity. She needed money by the 3rd day. The whole mansion watched Zainab like a movie. She hadn't cried. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't packed her bag. Madam Vivienne hated that. She liked breaking people. She liked seeing fear. And Zainab's silence looked like disrespect. So Madam Vivienne turned up the cruelty. First, she removed Zainab's uniform. Zainab returned to her quarters and found only a see-through lace gown left behind. Clearly not hers. The housekeeper whispered, "Don't wear that. Madam set you up." Zainab simply wore her faded t-shirt and wrapper. "It's decent," she said. "It's clean. It's enough." When Madam Vivienne saw her, she smiled slowly. Mocking, dangerous. "Did you sleep in the gutter?" she asked. "Or are you dressing to match the mop?" Some staff chuckled nervously, afraid not to laugh. Zainab didn't respond. She bowed, picked up the mop and kept working. That was what unsettled Madam Vivienne. The woman wanted a reaction. Tears, anger, begging. But Zainab gave her nothing. Then came the accidents. Madam Vivienne poured red wine on the white rug and gasped theatrically. Oops. Zainab quietly cleaned it. Another day, Madam Vivienne knocked down a crystal bowl and blamed Zainab. You broke it, she shouted. Zainab lowered her eyes. I will clean it, ma. Still no fight. Still no tears. The staff stared in disbelief. Even the gateman Sani whispered, This new one get mined. Mama Tiwa shook her head and murmured prayers. That evening, Chief Adewale sat in the garden reading. Zainab swept near the flowers. Her wrapper was torn at the edge, and tiredness sat on her face. Chief Adewale cleared his throat. Zainab, right? She bowed. Yes, sir. Chief Adewale's voice became softer. Are they treating you well here? Zainab paused and smiled slightly. They are treating me like life treats many of us, sir, she said. But I will be okay. He blinked, surprised by her calm. That night he asked his wife quietly, Why is that girl still here? With how you treat her, most people would have left. Madam Vivienne sipped her wine slowly. She's still useful, she replied. That's why she's here. But even she felt it, something had shifted. Zainab wasn't fighting back with words. She was fighting back with presence. Saturday morning brought heavy clouds and soft rain. The mansion felt unusually quiet. No shouting, no slammed doors, no insults. Zainab swept the east wing when she passed the hallway mirror and froze. Madam Vivienne sat on the marble floor, barefoot, scarf half off, makeup smeared, mascara running like she had cried and wiped too fast. A half-finished bottle of wine sat beside her. Her heels were thrown to one side. She looked a human. Zainab's first instinct was to retreat. This wasn't her business. But something deeper than duty held her feet. Ma, Zainab said softly. Madam Vivienne turned sharply, eyes red. What do you want? Madam Vivienne snapped, wiping her face quickly like she was ashamed to be seen. Zainab bowed. Sorry, ma. I didn't mean to disturb. She placed a clean towel beside her. Then she turned to leave. Wait, Madam Vivienne said. Her voice cracked slightly. Why do you stay? Zainab was quiet for a moment, then answered honestly. Because I need to. My daughter is sick. Madam Vivienne stared. You could get another job. Zainab smiled faintly. Maybe. But they won't pay like this. And the hospital doesn't accept stories. Only money. Madam Vivienne swallowed hard. You're not scared of me, she asked. Zainab hesitated, then told the truth. I used to be scared of life, she said gently. But when you face death inside a hospital ward holding your child's hand, nothing else can break you again. Madam Vivienne looked away as if those words touched something she had buried. After a long silence she whispered, They said I wasn't good enough. Zainab frowned. Who, ma? Madam Vivienne's voice shook. His friends. His family. Even people in church. They called me trophy wife. Too young. Too flashy. No substance. Madam Vivienne rubbed her forehead like she had a headache that never left. So I decided I must control everything, she confessed. If the house is spotless, if the staff are perfect, if nobody gets close, then nobody can laugh at me. Zainab listened without judgment. She didn't advise. She didn't preach. She simply sat beside her, close enough to show support, far enough to respect space. For the first time, Madam Vivienne didn't insult her. She didn't slap her. She just sat there, breathing slowly like someone learning to be human again. And in that quiet moment, something in the mansion softened. Sunday morning came with strange peace. Zainab swept the porch while humming a church chorus her mother used to sing. She didn't even notice Madam Vivienne standing behind her until she spoke. Is that a gospel song? Madam Vivienne asked, voice calmer than ever. Zainab turned quickly. Yes, ma. From long ago. Madam Vivienne nodded like she was thinking deeply. Then she walked away without insult. In the kitchen, Mama Tiwa whispered to the steward, shocked. Did Madam just pass without shouting? The steward nodded slowly. Even Sani at the gate asked Zainab later, "What did you do?" Madam smiled today. Zainab smiled faintly. "Sometimes people don't need food," she said. "They just need someone not to leave." That evening, Zainab entered the master bedroom with tea like usual. But Madam Vivienne wasn't on her phone. She sat by the window holding a framed photo, Chief Adewale and his late first wife. Her face looked like she was fighting memories. Zainab placed the tea gently. To her shock, Madam Vivienne whispered, "Thank you." Zainab froze. Not because she said it, but because she sounded like someone dropping a heavy load. "You're the first maid who didn't try to impress me," Madam Vivienne added. "You just worked." Zainab replied softly, "I'm not here to impress, Ma. I'm here to survive." Madam Vivienne looked at her properly for the first time. "You've been through a lot," she said. Zainab smiled sadly. "So has everyone, Ma. Some just hide it better." Madam Vivienne nodded slowly, eyes shining. "Tomorrow take the day off," she said suddenly. "Go and see your daughter." Zainab's throat tightened. "Ma, I said go," Madam Vivienne cut in, but not cruelly. "I will pay for transport." Zainab blinked like she couldn't believe it. It had been 3 weeks since she held her child. The next morning, Zainab stood by the gate holding a small white envelope. Inside was 20,000 Nigerian nairas and a note, "For transport and whatever you need." Her hands shook. It wasn't just money. It was kindness, quiet, almost shy. Zainab boarded a kiki from Ikoyi to Surulere, then a bus to the hospital in Mushin. When she entered the ward, Imani looked up and gasped, "Mommy!" Zainab rushed to the bed and hugged her carefully. "My baby," she whispered, tears finally falling. "I missed you." They sat together talking. Zainab fed her pap, told her stories, and even gave her a small colorful ribbon. Imani smiled brightly. "Mommy, you said you will bring me home when you get money," she said. "Is it soon?" Zainab held her tiny hand. "Very soon, my love," she promised. "God is helping us. Hold on." What Zainab didn't know was that Madam Vivienne had quietly asked her driver to check where she went, not out of suspicion but curiosity. When the driver returned, he said, "She went straight to the hospital. The nurses know her." Madam Vivienne didn't reply. She only nodded. That night, while brushing her hair, she stared at her reflection for a long time, thinking of Zainab's quiet strength. Then Madam Vivienne cried. Only 2 tears, silent ones, but they were the first in years. Monday arrived with sunlight through white curtains. The kitchen buzzed softly. But the mansion felt different, like the air had exhaled. Zainab returned with a lighter heart. Still tired but stronger. The housekeeper stared at her. "You came back?" she asked in disbelief. Zainab smiled. "I said I would." From upstairs, Madam Vivienne called gently, "Zainab, please come." Everyone froze. That "please" sounded like something the house had never heard. Zainab climbed the stairs calmly. In the bedroom, Madam Vivienne sat at her vanity. She didn't look up immediately. "You returned early," she said. Zainab bowed. "Yes, ma. I left the hospital by 6 a.m. There was a pause. Then Madam Vivienne turned and held another envelope. "This is for Imani's medication." Zainab's eyes widened. "Ma, don't argue," Madam Vivienne said, voice firmer. "Just take it." Inside was 50,000 Nigerian nairas. Zainab's hands shook so hard she almost dropped it. Madam Vivienne looked away, embarrassed by her own softness. "You said something that day," she murmured. "About death in the hospital." Zainab nodded. "Yes, ma." Madam Vivienne swallowed. "I think I've been fighting the wrong people," she admitted. Zainab spoke gently. "Pain makes us do things, ma. But pain doesn't have to make us cruel." The words hung in the room like perfume. Madam Vivienne blinked fast, then waved her hand like hiding emotion. Later that afternoon, she shocked the entire kitchen by calling Mama Tiwa by name. "Mama Tiwa," she said. The old cook nearly dropped her spoon. "Yes, ma." Madam Vivienne sniffed the pot. "What leaf did you use?" Mama Tiwa stammered. Scent leaf and crayfish. Madam Vivienne nodded. It smells good. Thank you. The staff almost didn't breathe. They watched her like a miracle walking. Even Sonny at the gate whispered, Madam Don change oh. That evening, Chief Adewale sat reading his newspaper when he saw his wife walk past without shouting. He stared like he was seeing her for the first time. Then he looked at Zainab cleaning the glass table. He folded his paper and spoke quietly. Thank you, Zainab. Zainab looked up surprised. For what, sir? Chief Adewale sighed. For staying, he said. You've done something no one else could. Zainab bowed slightly. Her heart warmed. She realized she hadn't come to only clean floors, she was cleaning pain. 2 weeks passed and the mansion transformed. No more shouting. No more broken plates. No more staff walking like ghosts. The gardener even began humming while trimming flowers. Mama Tiwa made puff-puff for the staff on Friday morning for the first time in months. And the staff smiled freely again, like people remembering joy. But Madam Vivienne's change wasn't fully complete. Sometimes anger still rose inside her like old habit. One afternoon, she shouted at the steward for a simple mistake, then paused suddenly. Her eyes moved to Zainab, who watched silently. Madam Vivienne took a breath and said something shocking. I'm sorry, she whispered. The steward almost fainted. That night, Chief Adewale invited Zainab to speak with him privately in the garden. Zainab stood respectfully. Sit, he said kindly. Zainab sat on the edge of the chair, careful. Chief Adewale asked, What exactly did you do to my wife? Zainab smiled gently. Nothing, sir, she replied. I just didn't run. Chief Adewale stared. She has chased away people who needed that job more than you. Zainab nodded. Some people only hurt others because they believe they are unlovable, she said softly. Chief Adewale's eyes softened. Vivienne has never felt safe, he admitted quietly. Not even with me. Zainab hesitated, then spoke carefully. Sir, maybe she does not need fear. Maybe she needs assurance. Chief Adewale sighed deeply. I married her because she made me feel alive, he confessed. But I never understood her insecurities. Zainab nodded. People don't become hard for no reason, she said. Chief Adewale looked away, ashamed. You are a brave woman, he said. If you need anything for your child, tell me. Zainab's throat tightened. Thank you, sir, she whispered. That night, for the first time, Chief Adewale knocked on his wife's door and said, Vivienne, can we talk? Madam Vivienne almost refused. Her pride screamed no. But she remembered Zainab's words about hospitals and death, and suddenly pride felt stupid. She opened the door slowly. Chief Adewale walked in and sat on the edge of the bed like a man unsure of himself. I have not been good to you, he said. Madam Vivienne scoffed. You noticed now. Chief Adewale nodded. I dismissed your pain, he admitted. Madam Vivienne's lips trembled. They never accept me, she whispered. Your family. Your friends. Chief Adewale held her hands. Then let them go, he said firmly. I chose you. Madam Vivienne broke down, crying quietly into his chest. The next day, Madam Vivienne called a meeting in the living room. Every staff member stood trembling, expecting insult. Instead, Madam Vivienne surprised them. She cleared her throat and said, I have been cruel. The house fell silent. I used fear to control this house, and I was wrong. Mama Tiwa covered her mouth. The steward blinked fast. Madam Vivienne turned to Zainab. You, she said. Zainab bowed slightly. Yes, Ma. Madam Vivienne swallowed. You saved this home without shouting. You showed me myself. Zainab replied softly. I didn't come here to fight, Ma. I came here to survive. Madam Vivienne nodded. And you taught me to live. After that day, Madam Vivienne began doing little things. She greeted staff. She asked about their families. She even stopped slapping completely. When she felt anger rising, she would pause, breathe, and walk away instead of exploding. One evening, she entered the kitchen and saw Zainab cutting vegetables. "How is Imani?" Madam Vivienne asked softly. Zainab smiled. "She's stronger," she answered. Madam Vivienne nodded slowly. "I want to help more," she said. Zainab looked up surprised. Madam Vivienne continued, "I called a specialist. If you allow me, I can arrange better treatment." Zainab's eyes filled with tears. "Ma, may God bless you," she whispered. But Madam Vivienne had one final battle, to face her own shame publicly. Chief Adewale invited important friends over for a dinner. Normally, Madam Vivienne would over-control everything, shouting until everyone shook. This time she stayed calm. One of Chief Adewale's sisters made a snide comment. "So you finally learned manners," she mocked. The old Madam Vivienne would have exploded. But this new Vivienne smiled politely. "I'm learning peace," she replied. "You should try it too." The sister went quiet. Chief Adewale squeezed Vivienne's hand under the table proudly. In the kitchen, Zainab listened and smiled to herself. The lioness had learned to rest. Months later, Imani improved greatly. The medication changed. Doctors began to speak with hope instead of warnings. Zainab visited often, now with permission and support. One afternoon, Imani held Zainab's cheeks and said, "Mommy, are you still that woman's maid?" Zainab laughed softly. "Yes, my baby. But she's not that woman anymore." Imani smiled. "Then I want to meet her." When Zainab brought Imani to the mansion for the first time, the staff cried. Madam Vivienne stepped forward slowly, bent down, and hugged Imani gently. "You're the little girl who made your mother so strong," she whispered. That night, Zainab sat alone outside her quarters, looking at the moon. She thought about the day she first entered the mansion, carrying only a nylon bag and fear. She remembered the slap, the insults, the broken maids who ran away. She remembered her own promise. Endure, endure, endure. Now everything had changed. She didn't just earn money. She earned dignity. She didn't just clean floors. She healed a broken woman. In the living room, Madam Vivienne laughed softly with Chief Adewale like a woman reborn. And in Zainab's heart, the truth was clear. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't fighting back, it's refusing to break.